Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Scott Silverman, co-founder of CommerceNext. We are a community event series and conference for marketers at retail and DTC brands. And welcome to today's webinar. We're going to go deep into on-site personalization with a group of experts on the topic. As always, we like to make these interactive, so feel free to ask your questions to the presenters when we have that opportunity. And thank you all for tuning in and making time to join live or listening to the replay if you're listening later. I have a few important thank yous I want to begin with. First, we couldn't do these without our speakers. These are folks who have amazing insights and experience, and they're willing to share them with our community. Today, we have Parvez Patel. He's VP Omni-Channel eCommerce and Digital Experiences at NAPA Auto Parts. Carolyn Pollock, she is CMO at Taylor Brands. Leslie Emmons Burthey, she is SVP of Marketing at TeePublic. And Marylin Montoya, VP of Marketing at AB Tasty. I really want to thank AB Tasty for sponsoring today's webinar. We can't bring these to you without the support of our sponsors, and it's been a pleasure working with Marylin and her team, and we appreciate them supporting this very important topic. So today's agenda, we're going to hear a presentation from Marylin on leveling up on-site personalization. She has some consumer research that she's going to share, and then we're going to have our panel discussion with NAPA Auto Parts, Taylor Brands, and TeePublic. First, I want to mention a couple upcoming CommerceNext events, and I also want to give a big thank you to all the CommerceNext team members that are working behind the scene, Alan, May, Veronica, and the others for helping to make this all run smoothly. So our next webinar is in 2 weeks. It's on Wednesday, April 10th at 2 p.m. The topic is scaling testing and to drive new e-commerce highs and delight customers. And it features retailers Kendra Scott, Hannah Anderson, and Communo Group. It's sponsored by Faster, and my fellow co-founder Veronica Sonsev is moderating it. To register, there's a link in the chat, and you can also go to commercenext.com to learn more. Also, as you probably all are fairly aware, we hope you are, we have our flagship growth show, and it is June 11th to the 13th in New York City. We have an amazing speaker lineup this year. Doug Mack, from the chairman of Fanatics, just joined. We also have folks from Patagonia, Tapestry, many, many more. There'll be over 150 speakers, and you can register in the link that's in the chat. And again, you can also go to commercenext.com to get more information and learn more. For those of you outside the New York City area, we have a travel program that provides up to $1,200 in travel reimbursement expenses in exchange for taking meetings with some of our sponsors. We have a just vast array of content on just about every topic you can think of related to e-commerce on our YouTube channel. All our past webinars, summit sessions, conversations with CommerceNext interviews, they're all there. Encourage you to check that out. And there's all kinds of learnings there. So just quick housekeeping note, don't worry if you missed anything. We're recording the webinar. You'll get an email with a link to watch the replay tomorrow. And let me just take a couple minutes to show you, for those of you who aren't familiar with our webinars, where everything is on your screen. Most important is the panel on the upper right. That's all the interactivity. You can see there's chat, Q&A, polls, handouts. Chat is where you can make a comment. You can give a high five to the speakers. You can interact with other audience members. If you have a question that you want to have posed during the actual webinar where we ask the presenters, please use the Q&A tab. And there's a extra functionality there where you can upvote the question. So if you see a question that you like, upvote it so we can prioritize that and make sure that we bring that to the top of the list for the questions that we take during the webinar. Later in the webinar, you'll see that we have some audience polls to understand a little bit about how you're thinking about these topics. And the live question will appear as a pop-up, but you can see the final results on the polls tab. And finally, We have a couple handouts. One is Marylin's presentation that you can download that in the handout section. And there is another handout about customer emotions and how to understand them better. That is from A/B Tasty as well. So feel free to download that. And if you're watching the replay, you can find the handouts at the bottom of your player. So with that, I am excited to bring Marylin Montoya to our webinar stage again. She is joining us from Paris. Marylin's a VP of Marketing at A/B Tasty. She's an expert in multivariate testing and on-site personalization. She has a background as an entrepreneur. Thank you for joining us, Marylin. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Scott, and thank you everyone for being here today. And I'm so excited to delve into this topic, especially for A/B Tasty at this moment. We recently went through a rebranding, so as you can see, our colors are a bit different from the initial logo that we had at the beginning. So let me jump right into this topic. So as Scott said, I'm the VP of Marketing at A/B Tasty. I've been with A/B Tasty for about 4 years and happy to be here. So what we'll cover today, a little bit about A/B Tasty. I'm going to talk a little bit about the changes that we've made. I'm going to go into a preview of a big study that we launched. So it's some of the data points that we've evaluated, and we will be sending out the complete version of the study to all the attendees. So you'll be able to look into that research, look at all the data points that we've collected. I'm going to talk a little bit about emotional personalization and AI. And then, of course, if there's Q&A at the end and in the panel, of course, we can get into more details. All right, so really quickly, A/B Tasty, we are an experience optimization solution and platform. We recently rebranded. Our focus is really to differentiate ourselves in the market by focusing on the partnership part of our offering, of our solution, really working hand in hand with our customers to understand what their objectives are, how to help them reach their milestones, regardless of where they are on the scope of personalization, testing, optimization, and really helping the brands turn ideas into reality. A lot of the times what we see as challenges are these obstacles that block creative ideas or testing ideas or even personalization ideas from becoming reality. So A/B Tasty is really focused on helping, our partner brands, achieve their goals wherever that may be on the spectrum of personalization, optimization. So quickly, what we do, we work primarily with digital e-commerce and product teams. We do what we call API-based experimentation, so code-based or web experimentation, and we cover a variety of areas of the website. So content, recommendations, search, what we call rolling out features, testing features, and patches, for example, are things that we do as well to help transition, for example, code-based changes and put layers on our website while code is being prepared to implement more permanent versions. Well, I'm going to go into too much of that, but so let's dive right into our insights on personalization. So like I said, this is just a preview of the full study that you will be receiving in the coming days. So what did we do? We surveyed about 4,000 people across the globe. We included 5 different countries, and we asked people that had recently in the last 3 months made purchases online, and we asked a variety of questions around shopping habits, influences, frustrations, expectations, privacy, personalizations, what people expect in terms of recommendations, for example, and also questions about AI. How do people feel about AI? How do they feel about having AI be part of their shopping experience and their shopping journeys? So let's take a closer look. So one question that we found really, really interesting was, what would make online shopping more personal? What would make someone feel like this brand is treating them in a special way? And the answer that stood out the most was that 38% rewarding my brand loyalty. So what was interesting about that is that a lot of the answers to other questions that we had were very much around price sensitivity. How do I choose what I actually buy? Well, I do compare prices. But what was interesting here was that the answer is showing that there are other opportunities really to get the attention of the customer, and rewarding a brand loyalty is not uniquely pricing, but it can be other things. And what we also saw interesting here was, obviously product recommendations coming in, or content recommendations coming in right after that. So I don't think this is really surprising, but what I think is interesting is the fact that customers are expecting to be rewarded for coming back, for having multiple purchases on a website or on a brand page or on a brand in general. Another question that was interesting for us was exploring what drives purchase decisions for different age groups. So here we also segmented the poll by Gen Z, millennials, Gen X, and boomers. And what we can see here is that Gen Z had the only unique, answer, focusing primarily on high quality reviews, meaning that this age group is really looking at the reviews first, and that's kind of driving what they're actually ultimately going to purchase. Whereas a lot of the other groups are really just focusing around pricing, shipping, discounts. How can I make my purchase in the most efficient, most economic way possible? So interesting here, especially because that presents, opportunities for personalization by these different age groups. Another question that was interesting here was, okay, what are the frustrations that consumers face when we're trying to shop online, and breaking those down by these different segments. So Gen Z and Gen X are really, really bothered by slow loading websites. So really interesting, because we had a variety of different choices here, and you'll see that in the final report. You'll get more details. But so this was really what was chosen as a top frustration for those two segments. And then for millennials, it was too many pop-ups, so too many things on the screen, kind of distracting, annoying the user journey. And then for the boomer segment, it was the shipping. So the shipping had a really big impact, and then I guess frustrated those shoppers in their shopping journey. And as you can imagine, those points of frustration happen at different stages of that funnel, of that checkout process. So very interesting, because it shows different opportunities for different age groups to overcome those different obstacles. Next question that we looked at was about product recommendations. So we were curious to understand what the perception of the quality of product recommendations is. Are people generally happy with the type of product recommendations that they're getting when they're looking at a product page and getting recommendations, or visiting pages and getting suggestions? And we were happy to see that it seems like product recommendations have become more sophisticated. I mean, majority of the answers sit around 4 and 5. So that means that there is a good level of satisfaction. And so for us, we interpret that as there's more maturity in this area, and there's an expectation that product recommendations should be relevant. And for the most part, it seems that brands have been able to get this right, or have been improving in their ability to suggest products that are relevant. So I think this is encouraging to see that there's this trend. Another question that was very interesting was factors that influence you to abandon cart. And I think everyone here, has abandoned cart, challenges. I think it's one of the biggest ones that we face in e-commerce. And what was interesting here was the payment method not being accepted. And you'll see that it's tied to another issue later on in another question. But we were surprised to see this, but I think at the same time, it makes a lot of sense when you look at the fact that there seems to be a big focus around efficiency, discounting, being able to find the product that I'm looking for, having, expecting the proper product recommendations to be suggested, and then, being able to make that transaction quickly and being able to use the payment the payment method of my choice. So all of these things are really personal and really along, the shopper being very determined or very fixed on a set of rules or set of behaviors that they expect to be able to engage in when they are going to shop online. And so this leads into this question here, because you'll also ask questions around privacy, right? Around the comfort of sharing personal information online, for example, creating an account or entering personal information. And so we had a variety of options here. The most comfortable were of course name and email address. I think that's a no-brainer. The least comfortable was budget, income information, and credit card information. So that's interesting because then if you look at the previous question about payment method not accepted, it's interesting. It might be that, for example, because of the lack of willingness or discomfort with putting credit card information, they look for specific types of payment methods. And if those payment methods are not available, plus the discomfort of putting credit card information, that can really have an impact on your checkout. So it was interesting to see both of these answers in this context. But as you can see, payment information is really is an important factor in the funnel. Another question that we asked was around, what would motivate someone to share information or reassure them when they are willing to share information. And it wasn't so much understanding of how it was going to be used or getting a reward for doing so. It's really about the reassurance. That's the answer that came up the most. It's really about communicating to the visitor that you're sharing this information with us. Look at the different ways that we are going to protect your information. So I think this reassurance that the data will be protected could potentially alleviate some of that stress or some of that hesitation around sharing information that is personal, at least to the point of being able to create an account or putting in, for example, address information or billing information. So there are a lot of factors here, obviously, to take into account, but very interesting that it's the reassurance. So that gets into what I'm going to talk about next, which is about emotions and AI. We did talk a little bit about AI. So we asked whether, what do consumers think about AI? And what they seem to want to get out of AI, at least in what they're expecting to be able to achieve by having brands around them implement AI, is to have a more efficient shopping experience. It's not necessarily to excite or create an experience that's over the top. It's more about, I know what I want, and I'm going to this website to get it, and I want to be able to do it fast in an efficient way, and I want to be able to do it in a way that I am reassured with the information that I need with whatever type of shopper I am. And so that's where AI seems to be able to play a role. And if I can elaborate on that, how can we leverage AI then, therefore, to make experiences online more adapted to each person, right? Because that's what it comes down to, is these shopping preferences, these expectations that are different for these different age groups, for different regions, for different types of shoppers. And we at AB Tasty really believe in emotional personalization, because we think emotions have a big part in the experience that visitors have around perceptions of, for example, security or reassurance or efficiency, etc. And so we believe that with personalization, even though there are different types of ways to be able to personalize, emotions is a very powerful way to kind of get over the barrier of some of the experiences that you see with the frustrations that customers seem to be running into when they're shopping online. So I'll jump right into a use case. So we have leveraged AI to be able to identify emotions of visitors online. So we have a set of category of emotions that we were able to segment visitors into. And so here's an example. For example, this is an example of a customer that had different segments. One that was a segment that thrives on competition, meaning that if we think about the poll about the Gen Z that look at reviews to make decisions, well, it's kind of an analogous to that. So there's a segment that really wants to look at reviews. They want to understand what other people are buying, and that's going to largely influence whether they consider a product or they consider a specific purchase. So for this specific segment, the brand went ahead and showcased the reviews on the same page where you have the product display. And so for that specific segment, they saw an increase in the conversion rate because they were offering the right information for that type of shopper, right? Which was the reviews. And for that same product page for a different segment, so a segment that needed immediacy. So these are shoppers that don't want to waste a lot of time. They don't want to look too much. They don't want to get distracted with extra information that for them isn't necessarily relevant. So for this specific segment, we removed the reviews. And as you can see, there was an uplift of 2% for that specific segment on that specific product page. So this is just an example to show that when you can have a specific behavior on a page that seems uniform, but when you break it down into different segments, or when you take emotions, for example, into account, you can see that the motivating factors for making a purchase are not me completely different or even opposing between different segments. And if you address the information, whether it's a payment method or a review or a display of a product in a certain way, you can actually either alleviate the blockage, or you can help that person make a better choice. Here's another example really quickly of a customer that wanted to test stress marketing on a specific emotional segment. So a stress marketing, right, is when you see, of course, I think you guys know this, when you have a banner that says, oh, somebody bought this, 36 people just bought this item, or these kinds of, this is what's going on right now with this item. And so this particular customer had run a test, and that test didn't really show anything significant. I mean, the test result was a bit neutral. But then they went in and looked at the audiences that fell into that test, and they segmented them by emotions. And so what they saw was that for the segments for which competition, so that these are shoppers that care about what other people are buying, and that influences their decisions and their desire to buy a particular product, this type of strategy was very successful. They saw that this particular segment had actually contributed to plus 9% in sales. But then they looked at the segment of visitors that needed security. So they needed like emotional safety, or they needed some sense of, I'm not, being forced to make this purchase. They didn't like that at all. And actually for that segment, there was a decrease of 14% of sales from those types of visitors. And so what was so interesting here in this test, and by being able to segment visitors by emotions, you can see that in the funnel and in the experiences that visitors are having on a particular product page, on a landing page, is not the same across the board. And so something that might seem beneficial to one person might be an obstacle and a distraction for the other. So wrapping everything back up to emotions and personalization, we think that the future is really about combining AI and segmentation to be able to understand different personalities and different needs in a dynamic way in the user journey, and be able to present the right information, the right content for those specific individuals in this dynamic way. And so I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to try to speed through this. But here was another use case where this was an insurance actor, and they wanted to run a test on a specific segment that needed security, needed safety in the purchase process. And so they added an extra banner, an extra pop-up, well, extra section on the page where they were reassuring the person of the privacy. So basically how they were going to be treating the information that they were collecting in this form, this series of forms and sign up process that they were asking leads to go through. And so they saw that for a specific segment, which they in our tool we call the intuitives, there was an increase in 4% in the conversion rate because that specific segment needed an extra assurance, and in opening and creating that extra assurance for that specific segment, we're able to unblock a lot of those blockers or those people that would have, gone out of the purchase funnel. So very exciting stuff. I can talk a lot about it. And so, I think I'm running out of time to go through all of it, but be happy to discuss, and we can maybe talk about it a little later in the panel. So thank you.
All right, thanks. Thank you very much, Marylin. We got a couple of questions, and I was going to ask this too, is in the examples you were giving, how did you know what the customer's emotional state was? Like, how was that detected? To know to show, not have a banner or have the reviews or whatever it was.
Sure. So I kind of skipped that part and went right through it. So we've invested in AI and an algorithm. We put it's about 8 years of behavioral science research, and we developed a segmentation system that categorizes visitors within a few seconds, basically, of them being on the website into 10 different categories of emotional states. And these 10 emotional state categories were designed by the research. We had a PhD working on that. It was actually a separate company that we acquired, and actually this is what they did. And what we've done is plug that into our ability to run tests. And so what happens, what we enable our customers to do is, for example, activate the emotions AI. We call emotions AI. And what it will do is, on any particular page on your website, it will categorize the visitors on your website into one of these 10 categories. And the way that it does it is by a variety of data points. So I have a whole list that I could potentially share, but it's a lot of different data points. It's how the mouse moves, how the person, where do they stop on the page, what device they're using, how long it takes for them to click something, how many clicks do they make in a specific. It's a lot of different data points. And so all of that together is mashed down to create these different segments. And then, of course, then you can segment by these different groups, and then give them different treatments based on what we've assessed by their behavior and other aspects on the website.
Awesome. I think that answered a lot of the questions that were coming in so far. Okay, so we're going to jump in. Before the panel discussion, want to get a little sense of where everyone is in their own journeys with on-site personalization. So we're going to do a few polling questions. So the first one is, we're asking, is what best describes the % of customers who log in when they visit your e-commerce site compared to a year ago? So this is related to all of the cookieless situation that we're all finding ourselves in, and trying to understand, like, how effective are retailers and brands in getting customers to log in. So in terms of the % of customers that are logging in, is it much more than a year ago, slightly more, about the same, slightly less, or much less than a year ago? So it looks like it's around either about the same or slightly more. And nobody's saying much more. So it still seems like there's still a fair amount of work to do. I mean, obviously, if they're logged in, you know so much more about that customer, and you can deliver much more personalized information and experiences to them. So I'm interested. We're going to dig into that a little bit during the conversation. on, what some different brands are doing to motivate customers to log in more. So, all right, why don't we close that and we'll go to our next question. And this is around your A/B or multivariate testing. And, how has the velocity, like the number of tests that you're doing per week or month or however it is you're looking at it, changed in the past year? Are you doing much more testing, a bit more, about the same, a bit less testing, or much less testing compared to same time last year? So let's see what everyone is saying. So the data's coming in. It seems like everyone is doing more testing, either a bit more or there's actually a fair amount that are doing much more, and not many are doing much less. So if you're doing more testing, you are in good company right now. So we're seeing that there's definitely more testing happening, at least among our audience. So why don't we close that poll and we'll go to our third and final question. And this is just a high level, how has your overall site conversion rate changed in the past year? Has it gone up significantly? It's slightly increased. Is it about the same? Has it slightly decreased or significantly decreased? And this is related to your overall site conversion rate and how that has changed in the past year. Actually, about almost 50% are slightly or significantly increased, with slightly leading the charge. We're seeing around 30% that are slightly or significantly decreased. The ones on the extreme, we're seeing the lowest numbers, either significantly increased or significantly decreased, which makes sense. But the trend is that conversion rates are going up over the past year. So good to hear that. All right, so we learned a little bit about everyone on the call. Why don't we bring up our panel and get into a discussion talking about on-site personalization. All right, Parvez, Carolyn, Leslie, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to jump right in, and I want to have each of you to introduce yourselves, your company, and then share a recent on-site personalization win you experienced with your brand. Parvez, we'll start with you.
Hey guys, thanks for having me, and nice seeing all of y'all. So I recently joined NAPA as in like a year ago, and I can honestly say that we are probably 10 years behind in terms of just our maturity, both from a capability perspective and also technology perspective in terms of what we can do and cannot do in terms of personalization. So over the last 6 months, we are piloting a lot of things. We are doing a lot of what I would call use cases that we think we might be able to find value and then scale. The most recent one that we did, again, test out, and we are in the midst of truly finalizing our 95% whatever quantifiable confirmation before we launch it, is in our business. I mean, as you can imagine, we have 6,000 physical stores that serve the local needs of mom and pop repair shops. So for our repair shops, being able to know if the part is available in stock in the local store and how quickly can I get it, that's a much bigger decision factor than maybe like price or brand, right? So if somebody is repairing their car, the first question they'll ask is, hey, when can I get it back? So my repair technician will go online and try to figure out, does NAPA have it in stock? If so, is it at the store that is 1 mile away, or is it a store that is 10 miles away, right? So for us, any sort of personalization that was based on geography and location based was extremely critical, which we did not have. I know in today's world that sounds very basic, but we just recently finished a test where we are boosting SKUs that are in stock in the local store to have a higher, rank versus items that are not necessarily in a local store, but in a local DC that is much more overnight versus get in the next 30 minutes, right? So sounds very basic, but we just finished doing that personalization test where instead of forcing the a customer to pick a store. We are basically looking at their IP addresses. We're looking at their other history and data points to say, up, you know what, this repair shop typically shops from this store, and based on their geography, this is the closest serving NAPA store. So we use that information to start boosting search results when they're looking for specific items, and we are seeing almost a 15 to 20% lift in conversion or add to cart based on the very basic personalization. Right. So again, it's our first use case, but we're looking forward to expanding a lot more based on those and other ones.
Sounds like a great win. Congrats.
Thank you.
Carolyn, if you could introduce yourself and a recent on-site personalization win.
Sure. Yeah. So hi, everybody. I'm Carolyn Pollock. I'm the CMO at Taylor Brands. We own multiple menswear specialty retailers. The one probably most folks are familiar with is Men's Warehouse. We also have Joseph A. Bank, K&G Fashion Superstores, which actually serves the whole family, women and children as well. And then also Moore's in Canada, which is a menswear retailer similar to Men's Warehouse in the US. And I've been with the company for about 4 years. I would say, you know, Parvez, you're in good company. Like, I think any of us sort of old school retailers that relied first and foremost on our offline store footprint. And, you know, while our experience is extraordinarily different from yours, it's similar in that it lends itself best to that in-person experience, and, you know, outfitting customers for their most important moments and helping them look and feel great is really our core focus. And that happens best when you can have an in-person interaction with someone. They can take your measurements, they can listen to you and what you're looking for and give you really great, valuable recommendations. So we inherently deliver on personalization every single day in our stores. And we've been on a journey to try to accelerate that more into the online experience as well. We implemented a personalization platform about a year ago, and I think it's been incredible learning for all of us as we go through it, as to not only, you know, technically how to deliver it in the best possible way for our customers, but also really what our customers respond to. I think what we've found is product recommendations are certainly helpful. We find them particularly helpful when customers are looking at a particular product and then looking to kind of build an outfit from that. So we've had some really great success with outfit recommendations and kind of how to wear it, how to style it, type of recommendations. So if a customer's looking at a pair of pants, we'll give a suggestion on a great shirt that goes with it, or, you know, what we like to call an outfit completer, like a vest or a jacket of some sort. So we found that really helpful. And then also any kind of personalization that ties into the transaction flow. One that's been working well for us is if the transaction flow gets halted right up front because the item the customer is looking for through our on-site search is not available, us being able to quickly follow up with personalized recommendations based on that search and what we know the customer is looking for in terms of similar related items has been really great. And then also following through on the transaction once someone's purchased something with those, you know, additional outfit suggestions. That kind of thing has been really successful too. So I think anytime you can kind of connect it, even if you don't actually know who that customer is, and you tie it to the items that they're clearly indicating interest in by looking at, we found that works really well also.
All right. Awesome. That's great starting with these wins. All right, Leslie, let's hear who you are and your recent win.
Hi, everybody. Leslie Burthey, and I'm at TeePublic. So what TeePublic is an online marketplace that helps artists turn their passion into profit. So on one side of our marketplace, you have artists who are coming to our platform and uploading designs. On the other side of the platform, what we can do is print those designs on t-shirts, hoodies, multiple canvases, magnets, stickers, you name it. So that's what we're doing. And we have a highly, highly personalized product and a huge breadth and depth of content and canvases. And gifters are also a very big audience. So for us, a big part of our personalization is all about our search functionality. How can we make sure that we get the right content in front of the right audience at the right time, and with such a big catalog of designs to present people, not to mention the different canvases that can go on that. There's a lot of SKUs within there. So we recently launched a search by category functionality in our top nav to help people more easily get to the content they want. And we've seen that be a big win in terms of conversion rates, going back to one of our survey questions. So that would be my win.
Awesome. All right. So yeah, I do want to tie back to some of the survey questions and this general idea around cookies going away. That continues to be a headline that we're all seeing. And I had like one question about cookies and then one question about motivating shoppers to log in. And I thought maybe we can combine those and kind of hear from each of you. You could either go one direction or both. Of either like, what are you doing to motivate customers to log in? And then just how are you dealing with the anonymous shoppers that you're seeing presumably more and more of? And obviously, one thing that you're doing is trying to make them not anonymous and get them to log in. But Carolyn, I know you said you've been doing some things at Taylor Brands to get customers to log in. Maybe we could start with you. You could tell us about what you're doing there.
Sure. Yeah. So it actually was amazing to see the data on, what motivates different generations. And, we're super focused on Gen Z as we serve Gen Z customers all the time for their proms. And, we want to make sure that we're not just then capturing them for their prom, but that we're also serving them for other moments through their lives where they're starting to have to show up a little more fancy and looking a little better for different moments, whether it's job interviews or, just important family events or friend events, that type of thing. So one of the things that we are doing to kind of inspire login is leveraging our loyalty program, of which we get really amazing participation. We tie some incentives to initial purchases or rentals to being a part of our loyalty program. So that gets really high penetration of our loyalty program with first-time customers. And so what we're starting to do is serve up recommendations on the product detail pages themselves on our website, so that motivating customers to log in so that they can see what their loyalty point balance is. And then even telling them if they buy this item that they're looking at, how many points they'll get and how much closer they will be to their next reward. So it kind of gets into that same idea of like, we know that they're going to be motivated by some sort of reward, not necessarily an immediate discount on that product, but something else down the road. And then we're experimenting with the rewards themselves in that, sometimes it's dollars, but there are also ways for us to offer experiences, which we know Gen Z really cares about too. So we're currently running a test where we're offering up, they spend a certain amount, and rather than getting dollars back to go and spend on more products at a Men's Warehouse, instead they get things like movie tickets or discounts for dining or travel credits, so that it kind of ties a little bit more to things that we know they're also interested in their daily lives, and just kind of rounds out the value proposition that we bring.
And Carolyn, just a follow-up there. So, I mean, on the flip side, or, like, what do you do with all the anonymous shoppers there?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is your approach that maybe the juice isn't worth the squeeze to focus on the anonymous shoppers, and you'd rather invest in getting them to log in? Or like, how do you feel about that?
Well, I think we have to do both, because I think ultimately we want them to log in because, for sure, as we are talking about, like, we can give them a much better experience. So we want to make sure that like there's value that they get out of that, and it's worth that little bit of effort to do the login. But we also know that a lot of people don't, and a lot of people, especially through the way we market, like the vast majority of our site visitors are on their phone, and just all of that just gets a little more complicated. So we do also leverage a tool that enables us to tap anonymous users and offer personalized discount offers based on the things that they're doing on the site that give us sort of predictive value of the customer. So it's, again, tied to their actions as opposed to any information that they've provided us personally. And then we're able to give a discount that scales and ups and downs based on what we think the value of that customer is, and if they were to convert, what that discount's worth to them. So I think that's a super powerful way to tap into and more that anonymous customer, give them something, the discount's not massive, but 15% off or whatever. And we also time bind it. So, you got to buy within the next hour kind of thing in order to get that discount. So it creates a little bit of urgency as well.
All right, Leslie, what are your thoughts on kind of authenticating customers, dealing with anonymous customers? How are you thinking about that at TeePublic?
Sure. Well, we're thinking about it a lot. So in terms of, tackling anonymous shoppers first, the progress there is going as it is with, I think, a lot of us retailers. So making sure there's a lot of alignment between, what's going on with marketing and product and engineering. We're doing all the things that we need to do, like cookie consent management, server-side tagging, things like this. But obviously, our first-party data strategy is a big component of what we're focusing on. So when it comes to our logged in experience, frankly, we have a lot of work to do there, but it is top of mind and we're working on it. So I think the number one thing that we're trying to do is give people a reason to log in, right? Give them value, and making sure that logged in experience is a lot more robust. So we certainly have a lot of work to do there, but again, going to the breadth and depth of content and wanting to keep them on our site and engaged, things that we'll be implementing are things like favorites and wish lists and things like that. And we currently don't have that functionality, but it's definitely on the roadmap.
And Parvez, am I incorrect to assume this isn't as much of an issue at NAPA Auto Parts, because you need to know what's going to fit with your car, and you need to give a lot of information to find the right part, right? Or am I wrong?
So I mean, I think you're partially right and wrong. So let me just maybe take a step back, right? So if you think of NAPA, so we have 6,000 stores. Our e-sales are right now 25%. So $1 in $4 is captured online. But it's a pretty omni-channel experience where customers start online, then end up either buying into a store or buying online. And I think to your earlier point, if I had to just think of our customers, 80% of my customers are shop owners, like what we call small businesses, B2B. And then the remaining 20% is consumers like you and I, who are buying stuff that we feel we can replace ourselves, right? So think of floor mats, seat covers, maybe some adventurous guy like me might change wiper blades, right? So depending on what we call applicated and non-applicated parts, it is important for me to ask for year, make, model, right? So if you're looking to buy a brake pad, I will absolutely ask you for a year, make, model so that we can give you the right brake pad. But if you're generally looking for air fresheners or cleaning rags, I mean, there's no need for me to ask you for that information, right?
Right.
So we do have two different experiences. One is for the pro, which is a pure, at this point currently, unfortunately, a logged in experience where you have to have an account, you have to log in, and clearly once you do that, we know a bunch of information about you. But what you're trying to move towards is, hey, as you start thinking about acquisition, digital acquisition, we cannot expect people to log in to see prices. So that's where we're trying to figure out what is the right balance of, hey, how do I still give you a B2B experience without necessarily having you to register or log in? And then again, I think to your earlier point, what we do also try to push more than logins and registrations or trying to figure out who you are is, hey, tell me your year, make, model. So that is something that we capture as much as possible. And then that's something that we persistently keep when you to come back so that we can tailor or personalize the experience based on what model or what car we assume you are trying to either accessorize or repair.
And Marylin, are you seeing any interesting best practices, or do you have anything you want to add to what our panelists already mentioned?
No, I think it's all of it really resonates. I mean, a B2B transformation, product recommendations and recommendations within search functions, improving the visibility of category pages for, being able to have people that are looking for specific things access them quickly. So a lot of it resonates. I hear a lot from different brands, different customers of ours that are having the same challenges and are implementing similar solutions. So I think where we see some differences really with adding that emotional layer to it. So it definitely opens a whole new way of understanding what people are doing and what they're expecting. And so, searching for specific products, but then understanding what kind of information they want based on the type of profile that they are. I think that personalization on site is a challenge. It depends on what kind of data you have available. For that, the whole cookie on site, the login versus the non-login. One of the things that we really invested in, because one of the strong value propositions of A/B Tasty is really being able to action. We're more of an action tool than an analytics tool. So we like the idea of being able to act on something and efficiently and being able to see results quickly. So a lot of what we've invested time in, especially now with AI, is being able to leverage those audiences that are identified anonymously, right? So without requiring a login, without requiring a sign up. Obviously, you can take it much further in the personalization, and when you're talking about LTV, those things are really important. But we have also invested in being able to capture those anonymous visitors and be able to put them in buckets. So we, for example, an ability to create intent segments using AI without having to identify anybody. We are able to identify people and put them into segments based on, okay, this person is irrational, or this person's unintuitive, this person needs comfort and safety, this person needs competition. We're able to do that. And so then that just opens the door for a personalization that you can run without having that barrier of, I don't know who this person is. So a lot of our customers are kind of merging those two things, like finding interesting ways to encourage visitors to go that extra step and create an account and log in. And I think, Carolyn, the idea that you have with the points and the reward system, that's really great, because I think people love that, because they want to see, hey, like, how many points am I collecting? I think that's really interesting. But on the other end of it, we also need to convert that anonymous traffic. How do we do that? How can we have personalization with people we don't know? Well, there's also a solution to that, and I think you see a lot of that right now, especially with AI.
So I'm so glad, Marylin, in your presentation you brought up emotion and intent. I mean, for all the history of e-commerce, I mean, the thing that there's the knock on it compared to in-store shopping is that you can't size up a customer. Carolyn, I could be coming into your store on a Saturday afternoon because I am going to a wedding and I forgot to pack a tie and I'm in a big hurry to get that tie. Or I could be in a much different state of mind when I come into that store. But I mean, you all have this, like, you don't know what's on the other side of the screen. So I don't know, Parvez, we'll start with you. Like you've been around this industry for a long time. Like, do you feel like there's some hope for like doing a better job as e-commerce professionals in sizing up customers in terms of their emotion and intent? What do you think about that?
I mean, obviously I will not talk specific to NAPA, but since you've kind of made it sound like I'm a very ancient guy in e-commerce.
Who has the gray beard?
Yeah. But I'm clearly seeing that so we're building some data science model, and again, I'm not an expert in this, okay, but I have a data science team that is based in Poland, and some of the stuff that they're doing in terms of what they can do with some sort of LLM models, I feel like that's where being able to identify intent and emotion based on some level of click, browse data, I can definitely see a lot of opportunity there. Whether it is in the current session or people who look like them and who have similar behaviors, either from a query perspective or a browse perspective. How much of that data should be first party versus third party, I do not know. But I'm clearly seeing if you have a bunch of smart people who can create the right models and we can poke them around, I can see some of those possibilities happening, especially if you have a decent amount of data that you can get access to.
Awesome. And Leslie, how are you hopeful? Like Parvez? Are you
definitely always hopeful, Scott? Yeah. So building on what Parvez just said, definitely looking at the same sort of signaling and data and models to increase personalization over time. I'd say another different example that came up for me is, this is where my brand data comes into play and thinking about the people I know who are visiting our website. So we recently did a site rebrand with our high expectation customer in mind. So the people who typically shop TeePublic are very high signaling, right? You wear that t-shirt that just says that one unique thing about your personality or your topic of interest, and that's something that's really important to our customers. So in the site rebrand, we wanted to relate to our customers, show them that we are their people, give them an experience that they can remember, not only the great product that they eventually got, but also where they bought it from. So that was something that we had identified in our data, that people were so excited, to get the product that, we had some work to do on brand recognition. So we've also been working on that aspect of things.
Carolyn, I don't know if you have anything you want to add, or there is one more question I wanted to ask everyone, which is around, I always think it's useful for our audience to understand how you're organized. And, Carolyn, I'll start with you around, who do you have someone who is the quote unquote owner of on-site personalization? Has the organization of that function or ownership, has that changed over time? And if so, what have you seen from that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I mentioned in the beginning, when we implemented personalization, we've gone on a big learning journey. And one of those key learnings was that you've got to make this somebody's dedicated job. It's super time consuming to do it right. And, you're managing site personalization, in our case, email personalization as well. We're looking to expand that to other channels. And, you just need somebody who's got the capacity to think about that more broadly, as well as be able to go super deep on the platform itself. So we initially had people kind of doing it as their side hustle, both on the email and on-site side. And it was challenging. And it was challenging to get off the ground as quickly as we wanted to. So we now have someone who's dedicated to personalization across the channels. And then they partner with people who are kind of point people on both the email side and on the website side. And it's made a huge difference, both, and that's on the business side and kind of the marketing strategy side. And then also on the more tech side, we have somebody dedicated to personalization. And that has also helped in just sort of speed to insight, speed to kind of just marshaling the teams, where we still are tapping cross-functional partners and that kind of thing. And I highly recommend making that a priority if you're going to make the investment in the platforms and the technology and all that, and you will see the return on that.
And Parvez, I know you said you've been there 6 months, and maybe you haven't made the changes quite yet, but what are your thoughts on what's the right way to make sure that on-site personalization is, assuming it's a priority and it's important that that you're structured in a way to make sure you're excelling there?
And when you say structure, you mean in terms of team, in terms of
team? Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it also goes back to what tools we eventually end up using and how much of those are kind of machine learning based tools versus having to be manipulated more hands-on. I'll give you a good example. In the last 12 months, we replaced our search platform from Bloomreach to Google, right? And if I look at some of the search engine tools that I had on Bloomreach versus what I will not have on Google, where I rely every click, every browse to self-learn and adjust, I'm having much less search engine tools available for my merchants to play around with my search optimization, right? So I think I do feel like it'll really depend on what kind of tooling we eventually go with, how much of that tooling is self-learning and machine learning based versus, hey, it has to be manually rules based, which I think I still feel a lot of personalization platforms have. I do have right now a digital operations team, which is much more focused on, as I said, search recommendations, where I am expecting a majority of the lift in terms of what to present, who to present, being done by the platform itself versus a team. So again, as I said, we're not ready yet to really implement or think about our personalization platform on a scalable fashion, but it'll really depend what the platform how much heavyweight the platform is going to lift versus the users.
So we're just about at the top of the hour. Marylin, I just wanted to just see if you had any what you're seeing, because you're working with so many different clients in terms of any new roles that are being created. I mean, Carolyn
Sure.
talked about a dedicated, person on personalization. What are you seeing?
Yeah. I think Carolyn, you hit the nail on the head. I think you need someone to at least be incentivized to drive the project forward, and then coordinate so that there are incentives in all the other business units and teams to collaborate. Because what first, personalization is a strategy that needs all those different teams working together. You have your CRM, you have your digital e-commerce team, you have your UX team, you have your product team if you have a native app. You've got so many people involved in the process. The only way to really get it together is to make sure that those teams at least are aligned with some common goal, and there's somebody to structure it and drive it forward. So for example, personalization requires integrations. It requires a unique one data set. Everybody needs to be working with the same data set. So for example, an integration or a tool that's able to pull in your warehouse data or your CRM data, your Salesforce, or whatever it is you're using, and being able to have all the teams be able to make decisions based on the same data is super critical, because then you have one team making one conclusion on the left and another one making another one on the right. And so that's one of the challenges around personalization is the data part, and then unifying these teams, getting them to speak the same language, look at the same data, make the same conclusions, have an aligned strategy, a timeline, a roadmap. And so that does require some level of ownership at the group level, or at some kind of business level, at a strategic level.
Well, great. So we are out of time. Parvez, Marylin, Leslie, Carolyn, thank you all so much for sharing your insights and experience with our community. We really appreciate it. We will be back with our next webinar on April 10th. There was a link to register for that, so we hope to see you there. Otherwise, have a great rest of the day, and we hope to see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.